Hello everyone and welcome to the webinar. Let me introduce myself. My name is Angela Batiste and I'm an early intervention autism therapist in New York City. I give private therapy to babies and toddlers with autism, and I coach parents on strategies to get their babies talking, engaging, and socializing. So let's get started talking about what we mean by an autism diagnosis. I want you guys to know that this is about 30 minutes long, and then I'm going to open up the floor to some questions. I want you guys to ask me any questions you would like and use a chat function in order to do that. So let's talk about what's meant by an autism diagnosis. So autism is a developmental disability in which the child has difficulty with language. They may be having difficulty processing language. They may also have difficulty with sensory processing. So a lot of the behaviors that you're going to see in autism are going to be those behaviors that are related to sensory processing. So let's get started with the signs of autism in children under the age of 3. What are the signs of autism? What do we see in a baby of 8 months or an 18-month-old or a 2-year-old? Well, it looks very different for each of those groups. In a baby, you may notice that the baby doesn't make eye contact. You may notice that when you get close to the baby and you talk to the baby in a kind of an emotional tone, the baby doesn't respond. And an 18-month-old, you may notice that the child does not use language to get their needs met or to get attention. The baby is also not labeling. Now we know that at 18 months of age, a baby should have at least 10 words. They should be calling their mom or dad, mama, dada, or whatever they call them. And they should be starting to do a fair amount of labeling of common things, everyday things in their environment, such as food items, toys, animals, body parts. We don't see any of this in a child with autism. One of the things we do see is a lack of interest in toys and very, very poor play skills. So what does this look like? So you may see that your baby is not playing with a toy, but what they're doing is maybe banging it or even spinning it or doing something other than the way the toy was meant to be played with. They may be banging the toy, throwing it, or they just may not be interacting with it at all. Another thing we see in children on the autism spectrum is they can be very self-directed. Now, this may come across as a child being stubborn or hard to deal with, but really what it is that they're extremely self-directed. Some of these children are so self-directed that I notice that during my therapy sessions, if they catch on to the fact that you're trying to get them to do something, they will refuse to do it. So this is one of the big traits, very self-directed. Now, this may be the case with some children, but not all, because we know that autism is unique in every child. The next thing we'll see is stimming. Now, what stimming is, it's a shortened term for stimulating. So they're basically stimulating themselves by either rapid hand movements, repeating words. Now, this is not the same as talking, because if you're repeating words, we call that echolalia in children with autism. So they're using words, but they're not using it functionally. They may just be repeating what they hear, or just out of the blue, they'll say something that just is not related to the context that they're in right now. You may see a child rocking. You may see them spinning their bodies. So you may see a lot of that. It's called stimming. Another thing we see is lack of eye contact. So as you can see, the baby in this photo is making pretty good eye contact. So children with autism do not make that kind of eye contact at all. They may avoid your gaze, or you may look at them or try to turn your eyes to face them, or turn their head so that they can see your face. But again, they're going to do everything they can to move their head and look away. And again, this varies from child to child with autism. Another thing is they avoid social interaction. So this picture is a complete opposite of what you would see in a child with autism. You see these children are engaging. One child is giving another child something. You don't see that at all. In children with autism, they like to avoid social interactions. Another thing we see a lot in my autism practice is children covering their ears with their hands as though something were too loud. And what's interesting is that you may notice that this is not happening necessarily as a result of something in their environment being too loud. This is one of the many mysteries of autism that people are not really sure as to why children do that. So you may see that. You may see a child that is so sensitive to sounds in their environment that they may have to wear headphones to decrease that sensory input so that they can be and feel more balanced. Another common one we see is toe walking. So it's not they walk exclusively on their tippy toes, but you'll see it. Maybe they'll walk across a room on their tippy toes and they'll stay there like that for quite some time. They'll come down to their heels, but you'll see many instances of this throughout the day. I've noticed that when I give therapy to my babies that a lot of the times when we put a hard bottom, a very stiff bottom shoe on with a thick sole, that they tend not to do that. So we mentioned this one again is their preference for solitude. They avoid social interactions if they can. Here's another one that's really common. You may see a lot of children on the autism spectrum spinning wheels on toys. They turn a bicycle or a scooter over not to use it or not because they're curious about how it works, but just because they want to spin the wheels. And they'll be fixated on that for a very long period of time. Another thing we see is lining up toys. We'll see that instead of this child right here, instead of playing with the cars, he's lining them up. They may line up anything at all. Blocks, stuffed animals, shoes, whatever. This is a common symptom. So another one, this is kind of a repeat of what we said before, spinning toys, wheels. This is an obsession with things that spin. So this could be, your child on the playground. Instead of interacting with the other kids or playing with all of the range of toys that they have on the playground, they will focus on the one item that spins. And they'll spin it and turn it or just stand back and just watch it. So those are some of the things we see. Let's talk now about some of the things that we want to do if we realize that our child may have some of these traits, some of the things we want to work on even before we go through the time it may take to get an official diagnosis. So the first thing we would like to work on is social skills. When you're on the playground with your child, encourage them to approach other children, say hi, give them a high five, say hello, say goodbye, chase them, run after them, whatever children do. Another thing of puzzles. So a lot of times we see that children on the autism spectrum have difficulty with their attention span. They have very short attention spans. So what we want to do is lengthen that attention span. Attention span is very important. We need it for learning. We need it for self-regulation. So puzzles are an excellent activity to do with your child. You want to start very small, maybe very 2-piece, 4-piece puzzles, and work with them, putting your hand over their hand to operate the puzzle. It's an excellent way to build joint attention as well as lengthen their attention span. The other one we can do is practice giving simple directions and helping them to carry them out. Give me a high five, throw it in the garbage, Give me the toy, sit down, stand up. Very simple directions. Now, for the last part, before we go into the Q&A, I kind of want to go over a couple of things that I recommend in my practice. I've been using these items for years to try to get children to develop some of the skills that we see that they're lacking. So cause and effect toys are one. You can go on Amazon or go on Google and do a Google search for cause and effect toys, and you'll see toys like this. These are toys that you do something and they make a noise. You push a button and the pig's nose says, "Hi, that's my nose." You open the door and there are coins inside that you place in. When you place the coins in, they make a sound or they will count.